The obvious answer is local, 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 because food from distant places is going to become more and more expensive. Peak oil and global warming are facts, and anyone who says otherwise is either hopelessly misinformed or purposefully ignoring the facts. Discovery of new oil fields has dwindled, discovery of large oil fields has quit, and the world demand is increasing. Last year's roller coaster prices and even the spot shortage we experienced here in Asheville are symptoms of a resource that's past its peak. And we're going to see more volatility in prices and supply in the years ahead. Global climate change is equally beyond question. Arctic sea ice is melting at an alarming rate, and global weather patterns are becoming more extreme. Australia's 13-year drought just ended with monsoon rains, and our local 3-year drought has just ended in one of the wettest springs any of us can remember. Our winters are warmer, and the USDA has calculated that frost-free dates are moving up 8 hours each year. That is, spring temperatures are arriving 8 hours earlier each year. Both of these facts will have a nearly incalculable effect on our food supply, and the biggest reason has to do with water. We're entering an era of permanent drought, partly because of the warming planet, but more critically because of our burgeoning numbers. There are more than 6 billion of us, and the best case scenarios suggest there will be 9 or 10 billion before population peaks later in this century. We're already running out of water. Major rivers don't reach the ocean because we suck them dry. Major aquifers are dropping fast. During the recent southeast drought, major North Carolina cities were down to less than 100-day supply, and Atlanta was down to less than 70-day supply of water. Most of the alternatives to oil use more water, although solar and wind power can pick up some of the load if we shift gears and start installing things like crazy. We might do that. We aren't yet. Currently, electrical generation plants in Western North Carolina use 83% of our fresh water that we use for all purposes. If we switch to electric vehicles and charge them on the current grid, it'll mean more water still. And recall that nuclear plants in this state were on the verge of shutting down last year because they were running out of water. Biofuels seemed like a good idea, but growing plants to convert to fuel takes enormous quantities of water too. And the current US biofuel system diverts food crops to fuel and is blamed for causing serious hunger problems around the globe already. So the world's going to have less water and less fuel, and the water supply is going to be more variable. The obvious answer is local, 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 because food from distant places is going to become more and more expensive. We need to support local farmers right now to help make them strong so they can provide more food for us in the future. And we really need to practice growing some food ourselves, as we've already been discussing here. In an era of declining fuel availability and rocketing costs, human labor will become an important part of the equation again, and the job market will shift from the cities back to the land. Small-scale farming is already more labor-intensive than mechanized corporate farming, and one of the reasons why local organic food and local food is a little more expensive is because of that labor cost. But fuel is going to pass that up pretty quickly. We're going to be going back to the profitability of small farms. We should really add ASAP's Farm to School program and the Bountiful Cities programs to all of our schools. I mean, we need to be teaching kids how to grow things because that really is going to be a big job market in the future. Fortunately, we live in the mountains, and while that doesn't make us immune from drought, it makes long-term severe drought less likely because when moist air is forced up, it cools and rains out. But of course, that doesn't mean we should squander our water either. Unfortunately, our current water rate system here in Asheville is designed to encourage use instead of conservation. And that system ought to be changed before we get into trouble. Recall that during the drought we've just been through, Asheville continually claimed we had plenty of water here. But 75% of the tributary streams to the French Broad River dried up during that drought. There were places down below Section 9, that's north of here, but it's downriver, where you could rock hop across the French Broad and not get your feet wet. We didn't have plenty of water. We were starving the river during that period. So we need to think about dry weather crops, about foods that require less disturbance of the soil and less irrigation. In England, they're already talking about a tax on lawns because of wasted water, fertilizer, and energy. And in California, part of the Food Not Bombs movement has switched to Food Not Lawns. Fruit trees and bushes should substitute for purely ornamental trees in all of our landscape decisions. And remember, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, but the next best time is this afternoon. We're in a very precarious position in regard to food right now. During the Clinton administration, the Republican Congress defunded our system of grain storage elevators across the country. We used to have about a year's supply or a little more of grain ahead, but what they took was the model, the delivery on time that Walmart and Target and Lowe's and Home Depot use, the just-in-time delivery system. So we aren't warehousing food in this country anymore. Grain goes from farms very quickly to be ground and made into products. That means that if there's a severe drought in the breadbasket, that's that wide swath in the middle of the country where most of our grain is grown, we could experience severe hunger in America in one season. In one season. It's not like it's going to dwindle. If we had the kind of drought we have in the southeast and it hit that area, we'd be out of grain. Some people have started hoarding food, and I suppose that's one way to go, but my preference is to build community, to build it at home, to grow our own food, to distribute our own food, to eat our own food. We don't control water. Water controls us, but we can control land use planning, and we can control what food we buy. We can learn to feed each other, and that's what I think the future is. Thank you.